Hello, my name is Mary Argall. I am the host here at Coog Cinema Interviews, and it's my pleasure today to introduce Professor Temple Northup. Not only is he a renowned writer, but he is also the director of the Valenti School of Communication here at University of Houston. We are so glad to have him here. Welcome, Dr. Northup.
Thank you very much for having me.
It is such a pleasure. Me, as a communication student, I'm a little bit starstruck to meet the director. What is it like being the head of Valenti?
Wow, it's an interesting experience. It's, we were talking earlier about having all 4 seasons in one day. It's Houston weather. That's the experience of being the director of a major school. Is so many different things happen in the course of the day that it's really, it can be challenging. It's a lot of exciting things going on, but it's just sort of popping from one meeting to the next, one initiative to the next, to occasional problems and issues that may arise that sort of, take precedent. So it's just always dancing around, being on your feet.
I can imagine, and you must have so many people, asking things of you and trying to work out the future of Valenti. Do you have a vision for the future of the school?
Yes, absolutely. So the overarching vision is, we want to train the next generation of innovative storytellers to be leaders in their fields. And if you look at the School of Communication, we've got a really broad spectrum of majors and degrees that we offer, from public relations to media production, journalism, health communication, interpersonal. And so the idea of just being great storytellers, great communicators, and leaders is what it all sort of boils down to. That's the essence of what I think the school can be. And then beyond that, sort of like the aspirational vision that I see is when you think about going to apply for a job, it's going to say Valenti School of Communication, University of Houston. That's where you graduated for. And so the real goal is for that to be making a statement when you apply somewhere. So if you're in Houston or really anywhere, that they see that on your resume and they're like, oh wow, yeah, we need to keep this person at the top of the pile. And then that should just carry forward, because then the Valenti alums move into positions of power. They're looking for our interns, and that'll just keep the cycle going. But that's the real goal, is for that to really mean something. So when someone hears, oh, I'm a Valenti school major, that's impressive.
Well, and I think to a certain extent you've already achieved that. When I tell people I go to the University of Houston, they're like, oh wow, that's really cool. Do you study media there? I'm like, yes, how did you know? And I think that's so cool that already there's that recognition, and it's seen as this place where you can go to grow.
Right.
But not only are you a director of the school, you also are the co-director of the Gulf Coast Food Project, and that originated at University of Houston?
Yeah, so that started sort of informally a few years before I arrived. There are a collection of history faculty members who are all doing research related to food in this region. And so when I came along and joined them, we just began to push it more and more forward and created this project. And there's now a food and society interdisciplinary minor that exists that's sort of grown out of our work. And it's the thread is food that ties all of our research together, and so we all look at it in a different perspective, but we see it as a great tool to learn about. So if you think about food, it's something that is the one common thing that everyone has to do in the entire world. Is you have to eat. If you don't eat, you're not going to live. And yet it's something that's sort of taken for granted. We don't think about it a lot, but at the same time there's a lot of culture wrapped up into the food. There's identity, there's economics, there's politics, there's environment. There are so many different issues wrapped around into food that actually we think that studying food is a great sort of lens to look at a lot of different other issues.
Absolutely. And has studying food changed the way that you personally look at the food industry?
It's certainly, in some ways, so again, our purpose isn't necessarily to study the food industry per se, and so my particular interest is I teach some documentary filmmaking classes and also a multimedia class where we'll tell stories related to food. And so in that sense, it's changed my perspective, because every semester I just learn about new places. So I send students out, go do a project on, the place that they find. And so, we've had projects on like the little India section of Houston, and I'm just like, oh wow, I didn't know that place existed, so I'll go try it. So that's impacted me very much.
That's definitely an awesome opportunity to expand your palette. I'm pretty jealous of
yeah,
that.
for the sake, for class.
Oh, of course, yeah, it's totally understandable. Continuing on with your research, I was looking up your papers. You've done some amazing articles and publications, and I noticed that a lot of it had to do with the psychological effects on human attitude and decisions that humans make, especially through like the influence of media. Was that something that you were always passionate about, or did you just come upon it?
It's something that's developed over time. So when I first went to graduate school, I had these grand ideas about what graduate school was, which of course turned out to be wrong. But I was just very interested, because I worked in television, to understand like how does the TV that people watch influence them. And so I was sort of naive at the time of how you might go about studying that, but that was really the seeds of it, and I've carried that forward, sort of changing exactly what I'm looking at, but I've always been interested in understanding how media influence our attitudes, our knowledge about other people or other foods in some of my research, and then ultimately our behaviors. And so that has been something that's been very interesting to me, and that's been the sort of thrust of my research.
That's so interesting. And before you went to graduate school, you were a writer in LA for about 7 years.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, actually being in the center of where so much film happens?
Yes, LA is an amazing city, and then working in the entertainment industry in LA was a tremendous experience. There are things that when I look back now, they didn't seem totally absurd at the time, but they really are. So the first show I worked on, the stage, so I was on the Warner Brothers lot, and the stage next to ours was the stage for ER. And at that point, George Clooney was on ER, and so they had set up a basketball court between our stages. And so I used to go play like horse with George Clooney, which at the time just was like, you see, it's just sort of common. But now, like, if you saw George Clooney, you would like freak out, like, what is George Clooney? But at that time, he was just on a TV show, and he's just somebody who worked, in the stage next to us. So it's pretty crazy looking back on it.
That's bizarre.
But yeah, it was an amazing time.
That's stuff to write memoirs about,
Yeah, yes.
What I didn't think was crazy before.
Yeah, exactly.
What made you decide to leave that path in LA?
Yeah, well, so I was there 7 years, and I was really fortunate because all 7 years I was employed the whole time. I never really had any sort of break in employment, but it's a really volatile career choice, and it's a volatile industry. The last show I worked on, the network that it was on, which was a major broadcast network, decided to cease operations. And so like things like that in most industries don't necessarily happen. It's not like the University of Houston's going to announce tomorrow that it's closing. Yeah, and so it was just really volatile. And so there were a number of professors growing up who had just had a really large impact on me. And I've always just had that interest in, well, maybe I can go back and teach or try to carry that legacy forward. And so that's what ultimately made me decide, like, all right, I've been out here 7 years. I've accomplished what I actually came out to accomplish. And so maybe this is a good time to step away.
That's awesome. And, they say that, most people actually do several careers in their lifetime. You don't really just stick to one. So
right, yeah.
It makes sense that you made that transition. And now, you're passing on your knowledge to so many students here. You must meet so many that are itching to do what you've already done, to really to break and make it in LA. What advice would you give them right now? The ones that are still studying, still looking for internships.
Yeah. Yeah. The number one piece of advice, if you're looking to really succeed, I think, in film or television, is to move to where the film and television happens, which is mostly Los Angeles or New York, depending on exactly what you're interested in. And that can be a big hurdle. Like, it's scary if you've never been there, just packing up a car and driving out. That's a little terrifying. It's what I did after I graduated from college. And so that's, the first big piece of advice is actually just to move and get out there, because it's an industry that doesn't they're not, I mean, there are job boards, but they don't hold jobs. It's not like, some where it's like, all right, 3 months from now, yay, I got my job. It's like a job opens, they fill it. And so you need to be there if you actually want to get a job. And then the second piece of advice is just to really network. And so that starts, even when you're in college, hitting up anybody you know for any connections to LA, because that's almost always how you're going to get your first job, is through some sort of connection. And so we've launched a Valenti School alumni group in LA to start trying to collect everybody who's out there, because it is such a scary move. So if you've got some people who were in the comm building before you and are now in LA, like having that group of people that you can go meet and talk with is, I think, an important thing that we're working on. And then once you're there, you just talk to anybody, because you never know who's looking for a job. And you never know in the future who that person is. So if you're friendly, outgoing, those things really help make it so that you can have a successful career.
Absolutely. Well, shout out to all the LA alums. I'm always willing to head down there and check you out, But it's been such a wonderful time talking about your experience. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
Guys, this has been Dr. Temple Northup and Mary Argall for Coog Cinema Interviews. Thank you so much, and you have a great week.